This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Surprise! Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or... What do you think it is?
Or another website?
Yeah, an online portfolio website.
Oh, fancy term website.
Yes. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code CFN.
Boom, bang, boom.
But don't type in boom, bang, boom.
No,
Do
CFN. I was just giving sound effects for when you type. So when you type, you're going to hear this. Boom, bang, boom.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, episode 207, Comedy Film Nerds.
Bang, bang, boom.
Pre-roll. Do it. Pre-roll.
This episode's going to have as many stupid sound effects as possible. Episode 207. Dun, dun, ba, 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 ba. We can't afford real sound effects. We can't afford free sound effect downloads.
Yes, we
So we have to make them up? Really? Are we that stupid?
What's weird is you pre-recorded all of those words and sounds, and then you just play them after. You've still got a sound effects board, but it's just you making those noises.
It's just me into an old school reel-to-reel tape recorder.
It's a Casio.
It is. It's a great piece of equipment. This episode is number 207, and it's going to be very exciting.
It's really, we got a lot of fun movies to talk about, actually, and some movies that you may have not seen yet. So a little special. A little specialness for you coming out.
A little specialness.
Yeah, for your ears.
A little specialness. That's vaguely creepy.
Is it? It's like an audio ear salve.
No, you made it worse.
Really?
A little specialness ear salve.
Okay, all right.
Now I'm
maybe
picturing
you're right.
you like wiping down someone's ears. I'm really uncomfortable right at this moment.
Okay, let's do the pre-roll again.
No, you.
Yeah.
What Chris is saying is you all have filthy ears, and he's going to clean them.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly
yeah, I think you might be right.
You dirty-eared weirdos. Thanks for listening to comedy.
You disgust me.
Your filthy ears.
Take those headphones out of your ears and wipe them.
What have you been doing with them? Like, what is your problem? Do you clean anything?
Maybe we should kickstart ear cleaner.
No, we're not. We're done kickstarting, dude. I don't even think I can say that word anymore.
I know. Dude.
Yeah. But thank. Is that the first time you've ever said dude?
No.
That seemed uncomfortable the way you
No, it's no.
I'm pretty sure he's sung the Bartman a couple of times.
Yeah. I've said it a bunch of times. But I think, you know what I think we should do? I think we should introduce our guest.
No.
Because it's our
no, we're
first
not.
time here.
I think his ears are filthy, and I don't want him in the
You know
garage.
any part of his ears?
Very dare you. I made a point of cleaning my ears before I came here, especially because I know how particular you are.
Yeah.
You asked me to do the show, I mentioned it to a couple of friends, and they were all like... I mean, Chris is kind of calm about whatever, but Graham needs you to have... Graham will not have any wax or residue
I can't have it.
in his presence.
I can't have it. Folks, that is not somebody doing a Chinese accent. That is one of the co-hosts of a podcast that you've been on it as well, right?
Not yet. It was a scheduling conflict. We had 100 podcasts to do.
Right. That's right. So, but yes, I've been on their podcast with Andy Wood, who's been on this podcast, Matt Kirshen from the UK, and the Probably Science podcast. Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome his clean, sparkling ears into this episode 207.
The rest of me is disgusting, but my ears are spotless.
It's really weird. He came in covered in filth, except shiny ears.
You could eat your dinner off my ears.
Yeah.
And you could find your dinner on the rest of me, because I am filthy. I am...
Yes, folks, that's our episode. This is what it's all about.
We've got a lot to talk about today. One of the things we wanted to
we
get
really,
started
though?
on. We do.
Yeah, we do. We do have a lot to talk
We got to talk about the K word. And one of the things we want to mention is that we want to thank you guys because pre-orders are still coming in. All that money will still go to help us go to more places, pretty much. We're looking at, we got our eye on Australia right now and maybe Japan. We'll see how much money comes in.
We need some more money for Japan for sure.
Yes.
But it's looking good, and we're working with Russell there and the mine in Western Australia where he sent us. I go, what city is it near? And he just sent coordinates. So
Yeah, that's when you know you're in the middle of nowhere, when you need coordinates.
we're going to a coordinate.
When
When
it's-
find it from a plane.
Yeah. It's just
Here's where you need to bail out. You got a parachute? Hope so.
like, I guess we're gonna.
I don't know why I
bring,
made him like an old-timey prospector guy there.
Yeah.
He's Australian.
He really is an old Western American guy who's working in a mine. Hey, how are you, laddie?
These diamonds look delicious.
Wait, he's a diamond miner?
Yeah.
We're gonna,
And he eats them.
he's a diamond-eating Western prospector in...
In the middle of Australia.
Yes.
Okay.
Who rides a kangaroo. That's,
And he's got clean ears.
yes,
Let's hope.
And he time travels.
Anytime. Okay, now...
It's going to be an amazing documentary.
Are you going to the UK at all on your travels?
You know, I would love to. We obviously have a lot of fans in the UK. I don't know if...
We're not sure if we're going to be able to get out there.
I don't know.
We're-
It's a money thing, so we're barely going to get
we
to
need
Australia.
another $500,000
Right.
to go all the places we want
If you,
to go.
the one thing I will say, and this is, we're getting into dull logistics now, but look into round the world tickets because I've done that before. As someone who now lives in America but spent a long time with a place still in London, done a round the world ticket because I had some shows in Australia and Sydney. So I went. You can get a ticket that kind of goes. Well, from London is how I did it, but it went London to Singapore because there's some shows there. But you could stop up in Japan instead, and then on to Australia, and then back round to LA,
What was the cost
and then
of that
back
ticket?
home. It was substantially cheaper than buying the individual tickets. Like it was, I think it worked out around like £1,500 to £2,000, which is about $3,000 or so.
That's because right now a plane ticket to Australia from LA is about $1,400.
Right, so for not that much more, you can go, because particularly
Yeah.
from London to Australia, that's pretty much opposite ends of the world. So you can,
Sure.
there's not much in it. It's a bit quicker to go via Asia, but there's not much in it whether you go via Asia or whether you go via the US. Because it's pretty much the same, like it's either way around the world. So they sell these tickets. I think British Airways paired with Qantas does one, and I think there's a Star Alliance one as well.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So that might be, I don't know.
Look at this, Matt Kirshen, with some travel tips. How
some
about
world traveling
World
tips.
travel, some clean air travel tips.
It's pretty impressive. Now, did you have to, like when you travel all over the world, is it like different logistically where you've got to you've got to figure out, do you need shots for certain places? Do you need to
Shots
do...
in any Western countries.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Chris has never traveled much.
I chanced it in.
What, haven't you gone to
there's a few-
Africa?
I've
But
never
you've
been to
played-
Africa, but there's quite a few shows. There's quite a few different comedy shows around Asia, but most of the ones. Indonesia I gigged in and I just chanced it. I think there are some bits of Indonesia you probably need to have malaria tablets, but
See, it
like
wasn't
Singapore
that
is
far off.
All right.
Singapore you're pretty safe.
Sorry.
Singapore's very safe
So,
Yeah.
in every sense. It's
What-
almost too safe.
what's
It's the cleanest, safest.
It's like Switzerland in the tropics. It's just it's a bit too clean, and you're wondering what they're doing. I don't trust this.
Well, we know what they're doing in Singapore. They're beating the shit out of people who spit on the sidewalk.
Yep, that's about it.
Yeah.
What's the craziest place you performed? Like have you gone into small areas, like in some of these remote locations?
I've never done that. I've got some friends who've done the Australian tour where they end up in some of these mining towns with just coordinates, and those are pretty crazy. I've got to gig in the Far East. I've got to gig in the Middle East. Bali was fun, but that's still pretty populated. It's quite a tourist
again,
area.
and-
Jakarta was kind of crazy,
Jakarta.
but
wow.
Jakarta's still a massive, massive city.
Right. Now, most of these gigs you're doing, is it all basically just like English and American expats, basically?
A lot of them are.
Crowds, right?
Yeah, it's all. I mean, a lot of them are, but there's a few gigs that I've done where, like some of the ones in like Singapore, there's a few nicer ones where there's a real mix of some of the locals and some of the So there are the expats, but there's also native Singaporeans and Chinese people and Malaysians and Thai.
Yeah, Singapore is a
and
big melting pot.
Singapore,
It's
yes.
a big Asian melting pot.
It's everything, and you can even you can go down streets where you turn a corner and this is the Malaysian community and this is the Indonesian community and then this is the Thai
Indian.
and this is Indian. Yeah, there's a lot of people from India and Pakistan, and it's pretty cool for that. And then I've done some shows. I gigged in Finland where I was the only English speaker on the bill. Well, I mean, the entire audience spoke English well enough to understand my set, but all the other comics on the bill were speaking in Finnish. It was in Helsinki.
Wow. So let me ask you this now, because I've heard this. I mean, I've the only international shows I've ever done. I mean, obviously, I've done American military bases,
Right,
which is
so-
not the same.
No, because you're at that sort of
It's
a bit
Americans.
of America that's been transported to another part of the world.
But it was when I did Australia a year and a half ago, which was great. And
Yeah.
and I mean, Australians are obviously. I felt like Australia was like more. Their culture overlapped American culture even more so than the UK in some senses. You know?
Yeah, I'd say
'Cause
so.
It feels like it feels like California. You feel like you're in California.
There's a lot of you know what, the only time I've ever found it difficult to switch between driving on the right hand side and the left hand side of the road, because people ask me about that, and I don't find that tricky at all, because Britain looks really distinctively British. So I go, okay, well now I'm in British mode, and then America looks really American. But the two times I've gone from Britain to Australia to America,
Right.
and Sydney looks so much like LA in terms of
Yeah. And Melbourne looks like San Francisco.
right. Melbourne, San Francisco, Sydney's LA in terms of the plants and the streets and the building and the architecture. But Australia drives on the same side of the road as Britain. So going from Britain to Australia and kind of going, oh no, don't adjust, and then Australia to America, where I did have to adjust, but it looked like I was going from the same place. It screwed me up.
I found that crazy. But I want to ask you this, going back to the show in Helsinki.
Yeah.
Did you find that you were getting laughs at different places because of their, obviously they understand English, but they don't,
Yeah.
it's their second language, and then any sort of slang or colloquial terms you're using.
Yeah,
are
and
just,
I've had that a couple of other times as well, where I've done shows in Holland, like in the Netherlands. I've done in Germany, again to mostly native crowd, so not English as the first language. You know what I like about it? When you're doing that, you suddenly become really conscious of everything you're saying. So some bits of material that you might have been doing sometimes you get into a bit of a rut with jokes. I've been doing this joke for a year now, so I can do it with my eyes closed.
Mm-hmm.
You find yourself sometimes go on a bit of autopilot. You're doing those words, but your brain is thinking about the next thing you're going to do, and you're not really in the moment. But when you're having to re-communicate those ideas to a foreign audience, so you're really thinking about what it is you're saying, it makes you re-communicate.
because
It's like what you have to do here in this country.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A little
you
bit,
guys,
though.
did you understand a word of what I just
I don't know what he's talking about at all, folks. I know his ears are clean.
Yeah, I've just been hypnotized by your clean ears.
Yeah, they are. They're sparkling. It's weird. I think I overcleaned. I think I went a step too far. I never knew that you could do the thing that you get in commercials, where the little bing ding
It happened. You
and
did
the little
it. You
star
did it.
appears, and it is doing that. I hope it's not being picked up in the mic, because I'm pinging constantly right now.
Well, here's what I want to ask you, because I found myself doing this a little bit in Australia. I would do what you're doing of being more cognizant of not speaking so much in slang,
Yeah.
because obviously the slang is different.
But I think also, it's as an American performing in somewhere like Britain or Australia, I think it's easier than when it comes to slang than as a
reverse.
Brit or an Australian performing in America, because we're so steeped in American culture. Like in Britain, I'd say maybe about 1/10 of our TV, maybe a bit less, is American, but well over 90% of our movies, particularly the major
interesting.
movies.
Okay.
Like nearly every film in the theaters in Britain is American.
One of our biggest exports, entertainment.
So we grow up with all those things. So
So a lot of the slang people get.
yeah, exactly. So I tell friends of mine who are visiting, I've chatted to quite a few American comic friends of mine who are performing in the UK for the first time. And they're like, what do I change? How do I do things different? And I tell them, generally don't. Because if you start saying petrol rather than gas in your American accent, it just sounds weird. And it sounds odd. And no one will be confused when you say my car is out of gas.
Right.
Like, no one in Britain is going to be going, well, you're putting a gas in your car? Right. Well, like helium or what? Like, everyone will know that you mean... they do the translation instantly.
Right, but you as a British comic, when you say petrol in your car, Americans are going to go, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, and I used to change everything and translate everything. Now my rule, I changed my mind recently, where I was like, it sounds kind of strange coming out of my mouth as well if I really obviously use an Americanism when the audience knows the British version. So what I generally do is, if it's in the setup to a joke, then I will use the British pronunciation or even the British word and know that they'll have time to work out what I mean. And if it's in the punchline to a joke where you really need it to understand instantly because it affects the timing, I'll either use the American word or I'll try to rephrase it so I don't have to.
Oh, interesting.
And it took me a while to work that out, but I just...
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, let's talk about some movies that we saw.
Do we have to?
It's been a very eclectic couple of weeks. I think that's being using a generous term.
We're
but
slowly ramping into some summer movies. Thank God.
But you know what?
Not yet.
You know what though? The bad movies are lingering. It feels like they've just been around for a little longer than they should be. Like they're really overstaying their January, February welcome.
Like Need for Speed?
Yeah. Is that which one you're talking about? That's fantastic. What a great idea. Put, over like $100 million into a video game franchise that no one cares about anymore. And make a movie that will never be as good as any of the Fast and Furious movies. And then put a guy in that's from Breaking Bad that most of the people who played Need for Speed haven't watched. So
it's such a disappointment that Aaron Paul and Dominic Cooper, who are really solid actors, are in this.
Yeah, why not make it's like making a movie about Tetris right now. I mean, that's what we're looking at right now. If you made a Tetris movie,
I'd watch the hell out of that.
Yeah. Starring like John Malkovich and you know what I mean, and then like Michael Fassbender.
A couple of friends of mine did make, and I'm just going to plug I'm plugging a YouTube video on a film podcast. But one guy who I know wrote this song that was basically the history of Russia set to the music of Tetris. And then my friend Chris Lindsay, who I've known for a long time and collaborated on a few times with things, who, I don't know, he's one of those guys with just a weird 3D puzzle-forming grey eye brain. And he made this amazing video accompanying it. So I'll plug that. If you just go to YouTube, it got pretty popular. I think it's in the 7-figure hits now. But
nice.
It's, if you just look for History of Russia Tetris,
and
it's been done.
Chances are it'll come up.
And it stars John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Well, this movie, all right, if you go to IMDb, the budget on this is estimated at $66 million, and they're saying the opening weekend was just under $18 million.
Oh, when you add up marketing and stuff for Need for Speed, it was high over.
And I'm going to be honest, when I first saw that poster as well, I actually just collated that with Fast and Furious. I didn't even realize it was...
of course.
Different thing. Oh, okay.
If I didn't know that it was based on a video game, I would have been like, and I'm sure a lot of people who don't know it's based on a video game or saw the poster or the trailer and went, this is the most horrible, Fast and Furious ripoff I've ever seen. Like, it just felt like, they felt like some studio executives went, get us a car picture. Get us the Fast Six.
And they had to have said picture.
Yeah.
They said, we need a car picture.
We need a car picture. Get bikinis and cars. Go.
Can you draw a car?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get a car. We will get a car. I need a car. I need a car and one of those photography machines. The camera? That's the one.
Make it happen.
And I need it yesterday.
This film... Okay,
you saw some of it.
I saw some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw just enough to go, yep, that's as dumb as I thought it was going to be. Somebody did post online, they're like, hey, Need for Speed. I think it's our fan Gigi Romero, who's like, she works in the film industry in terms of she sets up screenings. She goes, it wasn't as horrible as I thought. So she probably watched more of it than I did.
Probably.
Big Mama's House 2 syndrome.
Yeah.
I watched it on a plane once. There was nothing else on. Bad film, with a few moments of like, oh, they brought someone good in to punch this up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 times, I was like, yeah.
And on a plane, you go, well, thank you for taking up 2 hours of my time.
Yeah.
Right.
If you can't watch it on a plane, then it is goddamn horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're like, fuck this, I'd rather read the book I already finished. Or
I'm
whatever.
confined in a small chair and can't move.
I can't move.
And now I want this entertainment to stop.
Yeah, that's when you know it's horrible. So, Need for Speed, is there any reason for it to be in 3D? No. Is there somebody out there who's already seen it or will see it or goes, that's not that bad, Graham? Okay, you're probably right. And maybe I will watch it on a plane somewhere if we fly to Australia to do the Earbuds documentary. I'm sure it'll be one of the
15
7
hours to kill.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll watch it and go, this was fine. But really,
But let's talk about the movie that you did see the entire thing of.
all right. What I did see the entire thing of was Single Moms Club.
Wow.
And I will say this. We do this.
Let's back up a little bit. How did you end up watching Single Moms Club? How did you end up in a movie theater going, all right, 1 please for Single Moms Club, and go in and actually watch the movie?
Did you think that you'd actually purchased entry to a real single mums club?
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. I was hoping there was going to be all these hot ladies and
They get a single mums ticket,
Yeah.
and
all these hot ladies in their 30s and 40s who are so busy with their kids they want to
Yeah.
throw down.
you show up in your best sports jacket with the Paco Rabanne slapped on.
Yes.
Here we go, ladies.
Fish in a barrel. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, I seem to be meeting in some side room of a movie theater.
what is going on? And so, all right, this is a Tyler Perry film. And I say this every year that a Tyler Perry movie comes out, which is, this movie is not for me. But I'm glad I saw a lot of these movies, and there's plenty of moments in this movie that aren't funny to me, but there are actually some funny moments in this movie. Wendy McClendon Covey is very funny. She's been in a lot of movies playing, she was in Bridesmaids, she was in Reno 911.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's
great.
She's very funny. So she's great, and Tyler Perry lets her, and let me get the other actress's name. I think it's Coco Brown. Coco Brown is another funny actress, and he lets the two of them do a lot of improvising, and they come up with some funny stuff. And he leaves, and then there's some serious scenes where he lets Amy Smart and Nia Long, be actresses. So there are funny moments in the movie. There's a lot of moments that I thought were very cliched and like predictable. But you know what? The majority of the women in the theater were laughing, having a great time. Women of all ethnicities. And so I always say this. Hollywood clearly told him, I'm sure years ago, middle-aged black women don't go to movies, so we're not going to buy your thing. And he said, well, you're wrong. They just don't go to your movies. And he set up his own studio, Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, and he makes his own movies, and they all make a profit, and they're successful. And for that, I always say, God bless you for making these and carving out a niche audience and telling Hollywood to suck it. And so I give him credit for that. And there was moments that I legitimately laughed out loud at this film. So yeah, and I just couldn't. I was watched the first 10 minutes of Need for Speed and went, I can't do this. I'm going to go see Single Moms Club.
So you actually bought a ticket for Need for Speed?
No, I was not going to give that movie my money. I wanted to give Tyler Perry my money, so I bought a ticket for Single Moms Club. I went to Need for Speed. I pulled one of the 3D glasses out of the used bin, wiped it off with my hand sanitizer because I'm a germaphobe, and then wore it and watched the first 10, 15 minutes, and then went, this is stupid, and then went into Single Moms Club right as that movie was starting.
Wow. That was a Rube Goldberg movie watching experience.
It was insane. And so,
did you manage to steal the jewels?
Yeah. And Terry Crews, because we say on the show, vote with your dollars. And I don't want to enable the types of people that make Need for Speed.
Did you not think when you were sitting in there, was there not a bit of you that thought, well, this movie's not for me either, but it is for someone? Or did you just think it's just such a bad example of that genre that even the teenage boys who would be all about that kind of film?
If you want
It was a cynical money grab.
It's bullshit. If you want this movie, Fast and Furious 6 is a blast. Like we've talked about the last two Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah.
They're dumb. They're big and shiny with ridiculous explosions and car chases, and they're a blast. They're great entertainment. This Need for Speed is just, I don't get it at all.
Now, I have a question for you, and there's a fair chance you've already discussed this on some point in your past 206 episodes, in your previous 206. But Need for Speed, okay, there's already been 7 Fast and Furious, so that's a cynical money grab. But the many numbers of times that pairs of very similar movies come out.
Sure.
Like 2 disaster movies or 2 asteroid hitting Earth movies or whatever. Do you think that's pure coincidence, or do you think there are more cynical forces at work in those ones?
There's definitely parallel development where things get kind of developed at the same time. There's a number of different factors. One of them is Hollywood incorrectly always chases trends.
Right.
Like, all right, if one thing is popular, then, well, we need to do that thing. But then you're... Like when TV and movies like, well, we need the next Men in Black. Well, why? Then you have R.I.P.D. Then, it never
But that's
works.
when one comes out straight after the other. But if it hasn't already been a trend yet, like no one knew Armageddon was going to be a very big success. And was it Deep Impact?
Impact.
Right.
Was simultaneous?
Yeah, and that's more parallel development. But the interesting thing is sometimes one project kills the other project. But if the project is far enough along, they're like, all right, well, let's release it anyway. And then there was another. The one that baffled me the most was the kids switching with adults trend. I mean, there was a ton of those movies that all kind of came out at the same exact time. And
there was like Big, and then there was like Freaky Friday.
Well, there's the Western.
There was like a Jason Bateman one. There was
every 15, 20 years,
a Zac Efron one.
A Western comes out that's successful. Then they make a bunch of shitty ones, and Hollywood goes, the Western is dead. Like this happened. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think there's a lot of things that Chris is talking about, and also sometimes, in the sort of Hollywood rumor mill inner circle, it's like so and so just sold a car crash, a Need for Speed.
Oh, we have one of those in turnaround. We should get ours going.
Well, let's get ours going.
Yeah.
So I think that happens a lot because, as Chris said, they chase trends incorrectly.
Even when somebody else is like doing something, even like even at random, they consider that a trend. Like, well, we need to do that too. But no, that might be the wrong thing. Why are you doing that?
But then also, this is the long time ago former math student in me. Like, I know that seemingly coincidental things happen purely by chance a lot. Like, truly random things look non-random.
Right.
Yeah, there's always those coincidences, absolutely.
But again, I don't know. You know a hell of a lot more than I do about the mechanisms behind all these developments.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that stuff, and obviously, as we've talked about on this show, because it's the old business models are changing
very slowly, but they are
very slowly,
changing.
And people are breaking stuff out, and even just like Netflix, what Netflix has done with House of Cards and winning Emmys. Now everyone's trying to come up with their own original content and all that stuff.
Amazon's doing it now, and
yes.
So, yeah.
So, but to answer your question, there's a couple of those factors going on. I think you're going to start seeing it a little bit less because the purse strings have become tightened, especially for big budget movies. But you also have the old guard still there, kind of greenlighting some of these. So we'll see.
And if Need for Speed, could end up making plenty of money
on DVD,
on whatever else, on international sales.
And again, it seems like the kind of thing, well, international particularly, because I doubt it's dialogue heavy.
No, it's not.
I doubt it suffers from either dubbing or subtitling.
Yeah. Overseas, will definitely have a life. The problem is too, and this is unfortunate for these actors. Like Aaron Paul's got a lot of cred right now for being a great actor on Breaking Bad and stuff. And what happens is, they get into that Nicolas Cage syndrome. It's like, you've got a lot of really great, not only just talent, but you've got a great resume of really cool, interesting characters. And now, this is the one that they offer you, like a car chase movie. You want to see him.
But then he probably saw the possibility of being in a blockbuster franchise.
Sure.
Exactly.
And I can't blame him for that. And
I mean, it's a profile thing. I'm sure it's also a financial payday.
Well, I'm sure the payday from Need for Speed was bigger than his last 3 seasons of Breaking Bad.
But it'd be nice to see like Hollywood going, here's, you're an emerging talent. Let's give you something that you could really sink your teeth into.
Yeah, and he's a in Breaking Bad. He's a phenomenal actor. Like, he had several scenes.
He was supposed to die in the first season.
Oh, really?
And his acting ability and his character arc, I mean, was they like, we got to keep this guy in here.
Yeah, by the sort of fourth season, he was doing almost every episode. He was doing something that was like sort of applauding the TV.
Yeah, and the last episode, the last season, I mean, that scene where he finally gets out and he's in the car and he's like, tears in his eyes, like, yeah, he finally. It was just amazing. Like what he's done. I will say this.
But I would have liked to have seen that car then accelerate towards a ramp.
Yeah, and then do a flip, and then
absolutely.
and grab a safe in midair, and
just have some kind of dialogue where I need to go fast.
Yeah, and
something.
Helicopter grabs it. I will say this though, and then we'll move on. But I can only blame Hollywood so much. When it's just like Hollywood's only giving this and offering him this, and I get that. He probably had 5 scripts and they were just 5 different stupid versions of this, and his agent or whatever.
Do I want to do Desire for Velocity?
Yeah.
Or Yearning for Going Fast?
my heart wants wind going across my face quickly.
Or Fast Car Good.
Or Gun Titty.
Yeah.
I will but in this day and age, though, it's on him. Do you know what I mean? Zach Braff, I always cite him as an example. Obviously, I'm sure when Scrubs was at its zenith, he was offered that, just do Scrubs in a movie, Scrubs on this, and Scrubs on a boat. And he said, I'm going to make Garden State. And he kickstarted, he K-worded he K-worded his new movie. And Aaron Paul could do that. Like, there's too many examples of artists who get some sort of credibility from doing something great on TV show or whatever, and then just sit there and go, oh, the Hollywood system is broken and this is my only opportunity. Everyone that ever did something big broke out of it and said, I'm not doing this anymore. Matthew McConaughey.
I was just about to say he could McConaughey it, but then McConaughey did a lot of trashy movies for a long time.
He did a lot of trashy movies for a long time, but then he said, whatever, I'm going to get Dallas Buyers Club and I'm only going to take whatever he took, $65,000 or whatever. And I think Aaron Paul, if I was Aaron Paul and I had just done Breaking Bad, one of the greatest TV shows in the history, like it's got to be in the top 20 of best TV shows ever.
Yep.
I would say, well, I want to do what I want to do.
But maybe, he still has time. He's done one trashy blockbuster.
Exactly. There's plenty of time to
he could easily do several more trashy blockbusters and then do
he could pull an Affleck. He could really could reinvent absolutely. But you have also like Johnny Depp who was so meticulous about his career every step of the way, every role he took. And then when he blew up Pirates of the Caribbean, it turned around. What's so fascinating about that trajectory is that you have a carefully curated career, pretty much, from start to finish. Ever since 21 Jump Street, you picked the roles, got cool. Everything was really cool. Everything was really different, and everything was really offbeat to the point where, it's a new Johnny Depp film. You wanted to see it to see what he was going to do. And then you can't go more 180 than being in a giant Disney blockbuster and have characters walking around a theme park doing your character. Yeah. From there to there. That's an amazing trajectory. The problem with Johnny Depp's career after that is, where do you go from there? Do you go back to doing these small kind of movies, or do you go back, or do you continue and just ride the giant blockbuster wave, which is unfortunately what he's done, and now he's kind of lost. Okay. We could argue his mind.
He's out of his fucking mind. Johnny Depp is out of his mind. Well, let's use this next movie that Matt has seen as an example. Okay. The Hunt, which is starring Mads Mikkelsen, who was a great villain in Casino Royale. He was in Hannibal, the TV series. And he was on Three Musketeers, and he's been in Clash of the Titans. So he's
sounds like he would be in like a Girl with a Dragon Tattoo movie somewhere.
Right. But you see here like Clash of the Titans and Casino Royale. He obviously could, and maybe might still continue, and obviously with Hannibal, he as one of those faces and one of those actors he could always play a creepy bad guy for the next
100 years.
He's like Henry Silva. Like he could play that guy for
Michael Shannon.
Yeah, exactly. Till the end of time. Yeah. So then he chooses this very different film. So Matt talks. Well,
except he's sort of in the film he plays someone who gets mistaken for a creepy bad guy in a way. In the this actually came my Probably Science co-host Jesse Case recommended this film. It's on Netflix now. It was nominated for Best Foreign Picture, the Academy Awards. And yeah, he plays this kindergarten teacher who is falsely accused of molesting one of his kids, one of the kids in the class. And there's no spoiler when I tell you falsely accused, because the movie makes it absolutely clear right from the beginning.
Okay.
There's no like, did he, didn't he? You just see the thing play out in all its horror as a kid who says something stupid, then gets twisted, and the kid's stuck in this, not even lie, just, or actually is a lie, but like the kid gets stuck in the situation, and the parents and the other people in the community start to latch onto it and expand it, and you just watch it play out, and it's wonderful. It's a really
well. Let's go into his performance. Obviously, as you say, he's because he looks, and this is perfect casting and good acting. Go into his performance and how he brought this. He's basically an average guy who's thrown into this awful set of circumstances.
and he isn't. His performance all the way through is non-creepy. Like, he's the nice guy in the community. He plays it perfectly. Like, he keeps the the anger and the frustration just below the surface all the way through. It's really nicely done Scandinavian film.
Is it subtitled or is it?
It's subtitled.
It's subtitled. So the winner in that Best Foreign Language film, the nominees were Broken Circle Breakdown. The winner was Great Beauty, The Hunt, and
is there a scene with snow in it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now. Does it get said in? I'm sure there's a lot of hunting.
Yes.
There's a lot of different hunting scenes. I'll tell you that. It's almost like it gets used as some kind of metaphor.
Yeah. So then,
yeah, hang on. There's definitely a Christmas scene. There must be snow then.
Yeah.
It's a couple of weeks now since I saw the film.
and how did you? The director is called Thomas Vinterberg, who has done. I'm not very familiar with his work. He's done a movie called The Celebration. He's called Submarino, and it's all about love. So, like, without. Well, look from a director's standpoint. How did he convey visually the tone and the emotion of this film? You just talked about how the lead actor dealt with this and how he conveyed the rage and frustration he was going through. How did the director do that?
These are all the kind of questions that terrify me. This feels like
now you know how I felt on your podcast when I was like, science?
This feels like being 16 again at school. What was Romeo's motivation to? I don't know. They just wanted to kiss the girl, and then they killed each other themselves.
I like math. It's so simple.
There's no right answer. You don't get a tick or a cross. You get critiqued.
Okay, you don't have to answer that question.
You can take the fit.
I do wish I'd seen it more recently now, because it was a good couple of weeks ago.
But you definitely recommend this film. You think it's an excellent movie to track down.
I definitely, and it's on Netflix, so I'd say the vast majority of your listeners can probably watch it for free.
All right, The Hunt, guys. #work it.
And then tweet me at Matt Kirshen with how the director
told the story visually in a Norwegian fashion.
Norwegian? I think Danish.
Or Danish.
Whatever.
Is it Danish? I think it's Danish. I'm not good on my Scandinavian.
Country of origin for the movie?
The country of origin is, hello, I'm from Finland, Dane, I am. Right? It's the same thing.
That was the other weird thing about doing the show in Finnish. I had no idea what any of the other comedians has said on the show up until before my bit, and I had no idea.
It was Denmark.
It was Denmark, and I had no idea when I was about to be introduced, because the MC was introduced me in Finnish, and he was doing material in between every act, so it wasn't just like that was him. Now here's the next guy. So he was just talking in Finnish, and the audience was laughing. And every so often, his cadence would suggest that I was about to be introduced, but then I wasn't.
So you're like on the side of the stage.
Yeah,
just,
it was
about to
one of
jump
those
in?
ones where there was a curtain, so I was behind the stage. And every so often, I was like, turned to one of the other comics, like, is he introducing me? I was like, no, he is doing a joke about soap.
Oh, so it is me. Okay.
Okay. The top British soap comedian, ladies and gentlemen.
One of the finest.
All right, well, let's move on to a movie, Chris, you saw, Knights of Badassdom.
Yes, Knights of Badassdom. This, we actually have, we've been hearing about this movie for a while. One of them is when we had Brian Posehn in here, he was talking about it, and he's actually in it. He does a little cameo. And also, we had Frank Woodward in here when we were carrying his movie Men in Suits. One of the segments is actually of the creature from Knights of Badassdom.
Right.
Now, this is the kind of movie that it's a shame that it kind of has this history to it, because it's really a great premise. It's a bunch of D&D LARPers who live action role play, who go out in the woods, and one of them happens to have like a Necronomicon type book and actually summons an actual demon that starts killing, the LARPers. But what is a shame about this movie is it never really gets to kind of where it wants to go. And one of the reasons is the director got into a fight with the production company. The production company pretty much took the movie, did their own cut. The director never signed off on the cut. So you could see where it's kind of uneven, unbalanced, and when you could kind of see where the movie wanted to go, but it never really gets there. But that being said, it's not a complete mess. Like you would think, oh, this is just a mess. And it's not. You could see kind of where it wants to go. And also, there's some really funny scenes. And the thing that really saves
Steve Zahn's in it. And
I was just going to say, the thing that really saves it is the casting. Everyone in it is really funny. And you could tell there's some improv there. Every character is a little quirky. There's a lot of nerdy D&D jokes in it that are really fun. And, I forgot, because this movie has been shot years ago and it's finally been released. My first reaction was, that actor kind of looks like a younger Steve Zahn. And I was, oh no, it's Steve Zahn.
It is him.
Yeah, it's Steve Zahn. So, but every character, every actor, they do an amazing job. They're all really funny, but where it falls flat is the horror doesn't really get too horrific enough. I mean, it's definitely bloody. There's some bloody deaths in it, but it never feels like that part is a horror movie. The comedy is funny, but also they're like, oh, well, that could have been funnier. That could have been funnier. You could have used that punch up in certain places.
Do you reckon somewhere a director's cut that's superior is possible, or do you reckon the footage just isn't there?
I think it's a rights issue. I think it's like, does the production company kind of control it? Or are they even on speaking terms, the director and the production company? I don't know. I'd like to see a director's cut of the film, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen, judging from just the history of it.
But would the footage even be there to make that happen? What point did
That's a great question.
Everything fall apart?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like, it wasn't even like one specific place you could go, oh, well, now it fell apart. It was like all the way through you could kind of see, well, I don't know if that was supposed to be there or if this was the way it was supposed to play out.
You could sort of see the battle.
Yeah, you really can. You could see it literally from shot to shot and cut to cut. But where it's really funny is when, you've got like the game master that's essentially the dungeon master in D&D, but since it's a live LARP, he's like walking around and he has like this god complex because he's like creating, that's where you'll be ambushed and, well, we'll see if you ever, get to level 27 wizard. Like those kind of weird threats that are absolutely hilarious. Like those kind of, things. And, so there's a lot of really fun characters and performances in the movie, but it never really reaches kind of where it needs to go. But it's worth a view. I mean, it's on demand right now, and if you catch it on DVD or when it comes to Netflix, it's definitely worth a view. It just, again, it's like one of those kind of like, oh, it could be a little bit more, but with this kind of weird studio, even like small studio meddling, it never really reaches its full potential. I mean, Peter Dinklage is in it from Game of Thrones, and it's just a fun movie. It has like that kind of 80s kind of feel to it.
I've heard so much about it.
Yeah, we all have. We all have. I mean, literally from like, teasers being shown at Comic-Con years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's finally out. But it's the best way I can describe it is lower your expectations and just watch it like, as a DVD or a rental, and, you're not going to hate it. It definitely has some fun scenes in it.
That's a nice quote to put on the DVD box.
Yeah. You're not going to hate it.
All right. Well, let's go into the sort of the differences between UK films and films from
Especially
the US.
because you said something interesting. You said 90% of the movies that you essentially grew up on were American films.
Yeah, like Britain makes a lot of its own TV, but when it comes to films,
And the reason, and we've talked about it a little bit on the show, that because the BBC, which is publicly funded,
Yes.
right? So a lot of the TV shows, and there isn't this American model of we got to get it to 6 seasons. It's like we're going to do 1 or 2 or 3 seasons, or even just 6 episodes. So
yeah, but that's also true in Britain. That's even true of the commercial channels as well. Like obviously, like ITV and Channel 4 and Sky as well. They don't have that same drive. Like they have more of that model, and obviously even the BBC, once they have a hit on their hand, will try to get as much out of it as possible. Like I'm thinking sitcoms like the sitcom Only Fools and Horses ran for forever. And it got retired several times, and then got brought back for a Christmas special several times in a row. So they will still kind of do that, but there's not the get it to 100 episodes and get it into syndication, because syndication isn't a thing, because we don't have different syndicates, we don't have different markets. The BBC just
Well,
broadcasts.
let's be clear. You have syndicates, just you don't have syndication.
Right.
You're talking about organized crime?
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah,
you're talking
yeah, you
about?
have syndicates.
The firm, I
Yeah.
believe it's referred to.
Yeah, we don't have we don't have like there isn't like the BBC's Manchester affiliate.
Right.
They do have like their local stations, and if you're in Manchester after the news, you then get the Manchester news for 5-10 minutes afterwards, and in London you get the London one, and Liverpool, so on. But you don't. It's not the same, and so there's none of that drive. There's lower cost to get it going in the first place.
And so now how does that model play out? Because I know, if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of like part of the lottery, or there is government money that funds some feature films. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a few different things that fund certain movies. There's the Arts Council who will fund things, and some of the money from the lottery goes to fund, like some of their money goes to fund films, and
so then how do you
then different companies will invest as well, like Channel 4 makes.
Okay, because of that model, then how would you equate the differences in some of the UK films versus the American films?
Well, here's what we don't do. Here's what Britain really can't do: is big budget.
Right.
Like there's nothing. There are some higher budget movies that get made in Britain, but you'll never, unless you're counting like the Bond films, but even those have American money coming in.
Right. They're
And
not
that's
solely British productions.
Like
Right.
the Bond films are the only things I could think of that would count as British movies that
Are huge budget.
that are
Harry Potter.
again, yeah, I guess that. But again, that was
That was an American studio.
an American studio, but
British source material.
British source
That's
material,
right.
and they'll film things in Britain. The Star Wars movie,
course,
Star
yeah.
Wars is being filmed in Britain, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, they filmed a lot of it in London. But
There's Shepperton Studios, which is just like world famous in terms
yeah, and
of...
there's a
They
few
have
of those.
giant studios in
Pinewood and
Yeah. Pinewood's like the huge one, right? Is that right?
Well, I know. I remember just Shepperton was the one that they shot Star Wars there. They shot the original Superman movies there. They've shot.
and then
a lot.
there's Ealing Studios that used to make all of the Ealing comedies.
So then you're saying, so a purely British funded film is just by nature, by the structure of it, is going to be a lower budget movie.
I'd say that's fair to say for the most part. Yeah, which is why they tend to be more character driven films or quirky comedies or political comedies. Like I think the best, or certainly the better British films that came out recently, both it was like In the Loop, which was a spin-off from the BBC series The Thick of It, which then became Veep,
Right.
which is Amanda Iannucci and his team, and then his old collaborator Chris Morris made Four Lions.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And Amanda and Chris, between the two of them, were responsible for some of the best British TV comedy of the last 15 years or so. And they also spawned Steve Coogan and all the things he did.
Right. In fact, they just Steve Coogan just had another
Philomena
Alan Partridge movie.
There was Alan Partridge. Yeah, Steve Coogan made the Alan Partridge movie, which he made with Armando. And I don't know if Peter Bainham was involved, but he might have been. Maybe not. I think
That's
Peter
out on demand right now.
Peter Bainham then went on to write Borat and various other things out in Hollywood now.
Well, let me ask you this: how much, compared to American films, is spun off from TV?
Not that much, and it's rare when it is that it's good. I think the Partridge film was a rare exception, and In the Loop was a rare exception. Although when they did In the Loop, it was definitely a spin-off from the thick of it, but they renamed some of the characters and they did it differently. It wasn't just there's a history. People, I think this is across the board in any country and in any art form, whether it's film, music, comedy, whatever, where every so often someone will write an article going, don't make them like they used to, and they'll just cherry pick some of the best artists of the past 40 years and compare it to a random offering of today. Look at Need for Speed. That's no Citizen Kane. Well, yeah, because you've just... But when Citizen Kane was coming out, you could have picked 7 terrible films at the same time.
Beach Blanket Bingo or whatever. Like, everyone was like, Shakespeare was so amazing. Well, yeah, he was the best of his time.
Yeah, which is why he's now remembered 400 years later as the greatest writer of the English language. I was thinking about that the other day. That whole idea.
No one remembers Christopher Marlowe.
Yeah, but that whole thing of going like, did Shakespeare write his plays? And people kind of point out various things like he wasn't from a wealthy background, and his parents weren't educated. And so going, well, it would have to be someone extraordinary to come from that background to write Shakespeare's plays. But it would have to be extraordinary for anyone from any background to write Shakespeare's plays. Like, he's the greatest writer in the English language of all time. So whoever did that was extraordinary. It's not weird to think, and also his parents didn't go to school.
Right.
How did he overcome that? Well, because he had the best brain ever. Yeah. Because he was the biggest genius at making words happen of all time. It always feels like going like... It feels like going like, hey, there's a guy out back. He can balance a car on his head and juggle 5 cannonballs at the same time.
How did he do that?
But get this,
where did he go
he's
to
got
school?
a slightly bad knee.
Yeah.
He has a slight... No way could someone with a slightly bad knee do that. It's just... No, anyway.
No one can do that.
Yeah.
Well, real quick before we move on,
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. There's a history in Britain, and it's been around for ages of a sitcom gets successful, particularly like a sort of mainstream successful, and then they do a terrible spin-off where they send them to a foreign country. and every so often it's turned out well. Like I didn't see the In-Betweeners movie, but that was a great TV series, and apparently they did a very good job with the movie. But there's a long tradition of terrible films like that. The On the Buses, which was a sitcom that ran in Britain for ages, had Holiday on the Buses, where they went off to Spain or something like that, and it was awful. And they had the Carry On films as well, which I don't know if they ever made it to America, but...
This episode is spiking in the UK, by the way.
Yeah. The Carry On movies...
I remember everything he's talking about.
The Carry On movies get remembered with undue fondness by British people. They are terrible. They are without qualification. They are awful. All of them. Just terrible... bawdy comedies.
Right.
Like, not quite sex comedies, but just all cheeky fun. And they're all just rotten. But people in Britain, but you grow up on them, so you're like, love the Carry On films. Do you really? Do you really? Or did you just watch them for a long...
Right.
So
It's
there
like
was
it's like
always
a
that
children's
being made.
cereal that you think, it's so great. No, it wasn't.
There was always... Yeah, there was exactly that. So there was always that being made, and at the same time, there were always wonderful films, like the Ealing comedies, the Lady Killers and so on. And
Let me ask you one last question, because as growing up, you said most of the movies were American.
all the blockbusters.
All the blockbusters.
Generally, when we went to the cinema to watch a film,
Now,
most of the time that was an American film.
When you would go to the movies, then, as a kid or growing up, would you be cognizant of like, this is an American film, this is a British film, should we pick the British film over the American film, or you just wanted to see what you wanted to see?
No, it was you wanted to see, particularly when you're a kid as well, you want to see the thing with the big shiny poster and
right.
I do remember going to America as a kid, went on a vacation when I was about 8, and that was incredibly exciting because the films come out at that time. they used to come out in America at least half a year before they came out in Britain. Like, there was a massive difference, because this was before internet piracy and everything, so it was much harder to get pirated copies. I remember, and when you did, it was those ones where someone had managed to somehow hide a camcorder at the back of the thing, and you don't see those anymore because everyone has screeners that they rip. But remember when you used to get a pirate copy and you'd see silhouettes of people walking past and murmuring?
You can still get those in Kuwait and Iraq and all the bases I ever performed at. There's these bazaars.
Yeah,
and
that's still like VHS.
These soldiers would be like, well, I'm going to watch, Predator 5 on, they'd buy 5 movies for $1 or something like that, and there's all these awful.
But you'd have to buy a VCR, too.
Well, no, yeah, some of them were, but some were DVDs, and it was all that.
But I remember seeing that, and the other thing is, Britain doesn't have in the age ratings, we didn't have PG-13. As an option.
Oh, okay.
It was PG or it was 13. So I remember watching Batman, like the original, the Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson one, and I watched that when I was under 10 because my parents took me in, and it wasn't even going to come out in Britain for another half a year, and even then I wouldn't have none of my friends would be able to see it because we were underage. We'd have to wait until it came out on either VHS or on TV, like a year and a half later. So that was about the coolest thing I ever could have done.
Right on.
Yeah. It's like, I saw that. Your parents might be able to watch it in about a year's time, but you won't be able to. So I just saw Batman. It was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Very cool.
Right on, man.
So now it is a huge week for DVDs. Now, as the Oscar movies become more and more available, Frozen, I would not be surprised if Frozen actually makes a DVD record or breaks a DVD record for Blu-ray and also DVD.
As we talked about, I really liked it, and the soundtrack was great. That song won best.
Plus Disney, they so know how to market. So there's all these like promotions and all this stuff where pre-order it, and the Disney Channel's covered with ads. Like it's come on, it's going to be for sale.
Now I haven't been to Disneyland recently, but I'm sure it's covered in branding.
It's gotten beyond that, where it's those princesses from Frozen are so popular that you have to wait in line to see them with your kids longer than like to wait on rides.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like it'll be like a 90-minute wait just to see the princesses from Frozen. And I was reading an article and said that even like Disney at the parks, they're like, well, we didn't even anticipate that this movie would be this huge. So it's I would not be surprised at all if you read in another week's time, Disney DVD, Frozen sets new DVD record. So next is American Hustle.
It's nice to see Disney finally make good.
Yeah,
I know they've been struggling for so long. I'm glad the Disney guys are.
Yeah, those plucky young fellas.
Yeah, they pulled it together.
It's finally scraping together a couple of nickels.
All they had to do was hire, can't even say hire, buy John Lasseter and his company.
Right. All right, American Hustle is coming out. Again, this is one of those movies, if you didn't get to see it during the Oscar time...
check it out. Now, I will say, though, lower your expectations a little bit. It's not the best movie ever. No. It's definitely uneven in many parts, but it's definitely a good watch.
And then again, with Saving Mr. Banks, I really like this film. It's good Tom Hanks.
Didn't get nominated.
Did not get nominated.
I'm yet to see that film, but the concept felt to me like a DVD making of extra feature got out of hand.
It's worth it. It's definitely worth a DVD rental. Like going into committing 2 hours to see it in the theater. I went to a press screening. I did like it. It's definitely worth a rental or watching on a plane or something like that.
Like planes are when I do two things on planes when it comes to movie watching, and because again I go back and forth from the UK quite a few times a year. That's a lot of my film watching time.
Sure.
But I'll do two things. I'll catch up on new-ish releases that I missed out on. And then quite a lot of the ones that have on demand now, there's a sort of backlog of classic movies that they have on some of them that I've just been
catching up on.
Yeah, and there's huge holes in my film watching backlog, like just vocabulary or whatever. So I'm just catching up on, I hadn't seen The Sting until recently.
Whoa,
I know, right? Which is ridiculous. And I watched it and I was like, oh, well, I'm glad I did that. That was an excellent film.
Yeah, I think Saving Mr. Banks, Emma Thompson's great in it too, and it's very much like a Hollywood picture, you know. But that not necessarily in a bad way. It's definitely worth a DVD. It's worth watching.
Okay, and next one is Mandela: Long Walk to Freedom. Have not seen this movie yet.
Neither did I, and this is something I will watch on DVD.
And I'll be on the lookout for the U2 song.
Hello. Yeah, that's right. Two of these movies were Frozen won, and the U2 song was nominated.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a good week for DVDs.
And premiering this week is Muppets Most Wanted. Now, I saw the first one, and I really liked it. I thought they did an amazing job kind of revitalizing and the Muppets, because the thing that was great about it is that they did the Brady Bunch model, which was fantastic. You took what was great about the Muppets, but then you brought them into modern times. Like, you didn't screw with the formula. This is what made these characters popular, but now here's where they are now, and here's where we are now. And Jason Segel gets a lot of credit for that.
He's great. Like, he's really, everything I've seen him in recently, I've just gone, what was it?
But he wrote it too. I mean, he was also behind the scenes putting it together.
Was it Bad Teacher he was in?
Bad Teacher he was in, yes. That was a terrible movie.
I watched that on a plane.
Yeah.
I watched that on an Air Canada flight going from Toronto to somewhere across the country. And I thought he turned that film into something watchable. Like, he was so charming and likable, and
he wasn't in it enough to make that film watchable. But that's very generous of you.
So is Brett from Fly the Conchords writing the music again for this one?
That I'm not sure of. I know, like, Tina Fey is in it, and and it also has the feel of like an old school caper movie. You know, you've got like the evil Kermit the Frog, the double, and there's a heist, and so I think it could be really. I think it'd be really fun. So,
and is Segel co-writing it again as well?
No, he's actually not
James Bobin
involved.
and Nicholas Stoller.
Yeah, he's not involved in this one.
James Bobin's involved. Right, James Bobin
also directed.
Co-wrote and directed. He also co-wrote the Conchords TV series.
Oh, okay,
nice. The David Bowie song is probably one of the funniest songs that's ever been written. The Fly the Conchords Bowie song. What's a rock star doing in outer space, Bowie? One of the funniest lines that's ever been written in the English language.
So I'm looking forward to it, and it'll...
I like the first one, too. I'm excited to see this.
So, and it'll prevent us from having to see Peabody and Sherman. So it'll be good. And the next movie is Divergent. And
what's the story on this guy who didn't turn his cell phone off?
It's, that's weird. I don't know who did that. Anyway, Divergent is another one of these movies that's really... I hate to say cynical money grab again, but what you're looking at is studios going, well, we haven't really been able to capitalize on this Twilight money again, so why don't we try to capitalize on the Hunger Games and make it another dystopian type of movie with a young heroine who has to fight the system, blah, 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 blah. So... I don't know, but I do like it's
Shailene Woodland.
Shailene Woodland, and also it's got actually a pretty decent cast, and somebody else is in it too. Somebody who plays the head bad guy.
Oh boy, that's a great question. I don't know.
But anyway, I was watching the trailer.
Maggie Q is in it.
Yeah.
Kate Winslet is in it.
Kate Winslet, I think she actually plays one of the establishment people. That's. But what it is it's the kind of thing that it's the dystopian society where you get put into these different classes. It's like, you take a test and this is where you would fit in. But if you fail the test, which means you're capable of doing all these things at once. Basically, you're an avatar. You're the last airbender.
Right.
So, that kind of thing where you're like, were you a waterbender? Are you a firebender? Are you an earthbender? Well, no, I can do all of them. But that's crazy. Yeah. We can't have that in our society. So
I'm curious because Neil Berger is the director, and he did The Illusionist. He also did Limitless and Interview with an Assassin. So I don't know.
Now the other side of this is like I think where you're getting at, Graham. It's possible the studios have learned from these other mistakes and go, you know what? Why don't we just make a compelling movie and not worry about chasing this trend or this other movie? So it's possible this movie might be good. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm reserving judgment, but I actually, I like the cast. And I do like dystopian stories and science fiction, so I am cautiously optimistic about this movie.
Did you see the Hunger Games movies?
Yes. Yeah.
What was your view on those? I'm sure you've discussed this many times.
We have. I've actually read all 3 books. So.
I also read the books, and I should probably watch the film because I remember reading the books and thinking, I hate her writing style, but the story's good.
The story is amazing. The thing that it's basically a flipped version of Twilight, where you have this dopey romance, which is and this love triangle, which is the focus of these books, and then you add the genre elements in that are ridiculous. Whereas Hunger Games flips it, where you have a solid sci-fi story and world, and then you add the dopey romance and love triangle in it. But it's less prevalent because you have such an amazing dystopian and horrible, brutal world. And the first movie completely missed it. I mean, it looked like you were watching like Oz,
right?
And the Wizard of Oz, not the prison drama.
The prison drama,
yeah. So, and you're like, oh my god, they completely missed this movie. And where the second one, I think, got the franchise actually much more on track as opposed to what it was supposed to be. So we'll see what the next 2 movies are.
Oh, they're making 2 out of the finale?
Yeah, the finale, the last book will be 2 movies. Of course, you got to stretch it out.
That was it the same director across the series?
No, they dumped
switched.
the first one.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons.
Okay.
Because he completely missed the point of the book.
Yeah, he couldn't. I don't think he was good at directing action either. The first director.
No. You could have stopped that sentence at directing. Yeah.
Okay, well, that is our episode, ladies and gentlemen.
But we do want to mention too, Squarespace. We're actually getting a lot of swag in that we'll actually be able to throw into the gift packs. And like we said, we're converting a lot of our websites into Squarespace websites. And Graham, you did yours. We got LA Podfest is going to Squarespace, and the earbuds one, when we build that'll be in Squarespace. The thing that we love about it is that it's just easier. I mean, we've already gotten emails and tweets of like, "Hey, thanks for getting us that 10% off." We've been meaning
put it on Twitter.
Yeah, we've been meaning to make a website for a while, and we're getting emails too. And this kind of got us off our butts, and we actually finally made it, and it was easy and it was cheaper. So go in, save some money. I mean, you've been meaning to make a website. Why not do it now? And at least let us save you some money. Offer code CFN.
Check it out, and then anyone, we appreciate the stuff on Twitter saying, hey, I've been using Squarespace, or thank you for plugging my website, or whatever. It's very cool. If you have a cool website that you created with Squarespace, let us know.
Yeah,
and we'll plug it.
Yeah, we've got a couple episodes left, and if you do create and if it's any peripherally related to film, we will profile it here as the Squarespace website minute.
Boom. Coupon code CFN.
You should start doing that for us. Our show is also sponsored by Squarespace and has a Squarespace website.
You
All right,
should.
Probably Science.
Probably Science. Go to their website. How about that? Well, thank you very much, Matt Kirshen, for being on the show. Where can people find you and your podcast?
Thank you. Well, the podcast, as you've already so kindly mentioned, is Probably Science at probablyscience.com and on iTunes and all that kind of thing. You can find me at mattkirshen.com and Twitter at mattkirshen. You'll probably get the spelling wrong, but if you sort of Google English comedian Matt and then the letter K and some sort of letters, you'll get me.
Kirshen.
That's the correct one, but Google's really weird and good at working that kind of thing out. And then
any tour dates coming up?
Let me see. I'm mostly gigging around LA at the moment. I'll be at the Bridgetown Comedy Festival in Portland in May.
Really?
And then,
who books that?
This guy Andy Wood. You might know him from a podcast called Probably Science. So he's involved in that. And then shortly after that, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh as well at the end of May.
Nice. Check it out.
So come along to those.
MattKirshen.com.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Oh, happy to have you. This was great.
Well, I will be headlining the Improv in Hollywood March 22nd at 8 p.m. and then also headlining Flappers in Burbank March 30th. Chris will be on that.
Yeah, that'll be great. I'm
30th.
looking forward to that.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm headlining Flappers in Burbank this coming weekend. I probably should have said that.
Yeah,
it's coming out this week.
Yeah, it's coming out today.
All right.
So check those shows out. Also, guys, we are setting up for earbuds. Anyone who's in the LA area, we're setting up 2 different Sundays to come in, and anyone that wants to give your story about why you like podcasting, what podcast you listen to, how it's affected you. If on March 30th at the Hollywood Improv, which is 8162 Melrose Avenue, from 1 to 5 p.m. on Sunday, March 30th at the Hollywood Improv, come by. We'll do a 5-10 minute interview with you. And you
might get to be in a movie.
You might get to be in a movie.
Yes.
I gotta say, again, as someone, I know you guys are behind the LA Podcast Festival along with Andy.
And Dave Anthony.
And Dave Anthony, of course. But as someone who's a participant in it and just watching what happened, like, I was amazed by how many people traveled across continents to come there.
Yeah.
And just how connected people are to this. So, like, more than anything else I've ever been involved in the comedy world. Like, I've had a couple of occasions where I've been on high-profile TV shows that millions of people watch, or just doing regular live gigs or the other social media. But it's weird, podcasting more than any of those, how much people
connection.
feel like they know a bit of you and they own a bit of the show and vice versa. And
Yes.
That's
why we're doing
it, and we really want to hear from you guys if you're in the LA area. And we're going to do another one then April 6th at Nerd Melt Theater, and that's of course from 1 to 5 as well. They're both Sundays. We did this because we were assuming most of you, that's when you'd have time off. Come by. It won't take much.
We'd love to hear your story.
We'd love to hear your story. It won't take much of your time. And Improv March 30th and Nerd Melt on April 6th. Both on a Sunday, both from 1 to 5. So check those out. Chris, anything else we need to discuss?
That was pretty much it. We do want to mention, too, you can still pre-order on the Comedy Film Nerds website if you want to do a download or a signed DVD, as well as a custom donation. You just want to throw in $5-10 or whatever, because, we're starting to write checks for production insurance and everything else. Everything you pre-sale or spend on the website, we will use for the film, and it will help us get to some of these other more remote locations.
My CD's on Amazon and iTunes. I forgot that. CDs are. I'm really bad at plugs. I'm very bad at selling myself. I'll remember something else afterwards that I can just send you an audio file you can link in.
Sure. We'll just drop in an MP3 of you plugging.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's any rich people out there that want us to go to Japan, donate or email us.
Or Denmark. Yeah, if you want us to come to Denmark.
We'll go to the UK. You got money. If you say, look, here's $15,000.
But you can only use it to go to Bulgaria. We might still say no.
No. No. Are you kidding me? We're going to Bulgaria. We're going to get a Bulvanian panda.
Yeah.
All right, that's our show. Thank you once again to Matt Kirshen.
Thank you very much, guys. Can I just plug? No, I'm kidding.
Jesus Christ. All right, that's our show. My name is Graham Elwood.
I'm Chris Mancini, and as always, remember,
Han shot first.
Don't say Kickstarter.
Nice ears.